BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to wager on all of your favorite sports, contests, events with the first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews for all the news for each league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, college sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports information for live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head on over to BetOnline today and use your mobile device to join and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50, that's BELIEVE50, BLEAV 50, to receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's betonline.ag, betonline.ag. Chris Phillips, SEC Unfiltered. Chris, I know that you're a baseball guy, but listen to me. My Yankees are up 3-0 on the Dodgers right now. They were down 3-0. We're coming back. Aaron Judge is back. Here come the Yankees, baby. How are you?
Blake, what's up, man? I was about to ask you. I was just eating dinner downstairs, watching that game, and watch Judge and Jazz Chisholm, I think, go back-to-back. So, yeah, listen, don't let them take the series back to L.A., man. Don't give the Yankees that much life. I all of a sudden, you get to a game 6, it starts creeping in the back of your mind, man, we can't lose this one because of game 7, anything can happen, man. But, Blake, it's good to be here, man. Got some exciting news, by the way, just before we jumped on. And I mentioned this to you before, but the masses are obviously –
You're going to be in Baton Rouge in 2 weeks. I knew it.
I wish that was the news I was giving you. I do. But I think maybe just as exciting, if not more exciting, my sister and her husband are officially calling Baton Rouge. They are moving back first week of December. They've already got the house, the job, everything signed, good to go. So I will officially have family in the great state of Louisiana and in Baton Rouge once again. So now I've got even more reason to come down and a place I can stay long term. So the next stay will be much longer than a weekend, I can assure you. Very excited for it. And who knows, maybe the Phillipses are kind of just relocating down to the boot. You never know. But I don't know. Maybe it was that trip. We went down to LSU together, obviously. We went to that Ole Miss game. My sister and her husband were like, we got to get back. We got to get back. So I don't know. Maybe I'm next. Maybe I'm next.
I think that was it.
That was probably it. That sealed it. That sealed it. That and the fat check that ExxonMobil's throwing them, but that's kind of besides the point.
Oh, well, I mean, it's Exxon. You know, I wish they would turn your brother's call over here. I'm like, just put – like, dude, I told him I'd put a big Exxon sign behind my ass. You know what I mean?
Engineers a solid life. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. So they got options. And, yeah, man, like I said,
I'm going to call your sister and be like, listen, AYS needs a sponsorship down here now. I mean, money ain't an issue for Exxon right now, man.
Yeah, for those that don't realize, she went to the University of South Carolina, moved there just out of college, worked for Exxon, was there about 3 years. Met her husband there, left, and moved back to South Carolina. And they were here about 2-3 years, like I said, man, and they realized, they were like, man, we really liked it down there. So you know
what happened? Let me tell you what really happened.
All right.
This is what really happened. They didn't tell you this, but I know for a fact it happened. One day when they were in Baton Rouge, they went to this little place called Pyran's. Okay? They got the Andouille uncrusted, and that was the real sealing deal. But it's interesting because, Chris, when I was just talking a little bit earlier, we're giving a little bit of an Alabama LSU preview here for in 2 weeks. And I said, listen, Chris has actually been in this environment. All of us know about the environment. And I'm going to ask you about this and your experience in just a second. Chris, that's where I think LSU gets to them. Because they've been they're 129th in the country in penalties, meaning Alabama. That has been their big issue. When they're in a hostile environment, hostile situation, things have gotten to them a little bit. So I think that this place, more than anything on the field, how does Alabama react to being in this situation? Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, Blake, you mentioned that. I mean, heck, I was there the following week and watched them play at Neyland. I mean, they struggled in that environment too. And I mean, I think comparable environments, it's so funny. On a side note, the amount of people that were DMing me after the Tennessee game, they wanted to know which one was louder, man, Death Valley or Neyland. And I'm like, dude, Death Valley's in its own category. like we just, you know what I mean? Respect. Neyland was great. It was loud. It was deafening. Death Valley's in its own.
Like, hey, bro,
its own category. It's one of one.
One place had 102,000 people singing Boosie. Like you
Right,
can't really,
right.
you can't really replicate that.
Can't duplicate that. So I mean, yeah, I watched Bama on the road, to your point, and I mean, lack of discipline is something that's not a new. It's not a new issue. It goes back to when Nick Saban was there in the end of his tenure. So I mean, certainly it becomes something, Blake, where that's a characteristic of your football team and of your football program. This isn't like a one-off thing. I would fully expect that to be a problem yet again. And I mean, again, I'm going to sound like a broken record next week when we dive into the preview and talk about the game, but LSU, Alabama, I know LSU is, imperfect like most teams out there, and Garrett Nussmeier scares the bejesus out of me at times. But is the game at LSU? Yes, it is. Is the game at night? Yes, it is. Well, that math ain't that hard, in my opinion. So
yeah, the math ain't mathing.
The math ain't mathing. Watching Alabama, Blake, I'm gonna say this. I don't think Alabama's man enough to go in there and win that game. I don't. Not under Caleb.
Hey, okay, so hold on. Last week, me and you were on content together, and we made a statement like that, and the bitch got 500,000 views. So,
listen, I respect, but I just don't think this Alabama football team is man enough to go into Death Valley at night and win. I just, from what I've seen, I don't. They're a shell of the program that we once knew under Nick Saban. There's so much stuff that has been happening this year that you're like, Nick Saban would never. Well, he's no longer there, right? And all due respect to Kalen DeBoer, he's not Nick Saban. So, listen, they've got personnel. They've got good personnel. I'm not saying they the season's a total wash for them, but in a playoff elimination game at Death Valley at night against an LSU team coming off a bye that's going to be, desperate to respond, to get that nasty taste out of their mouth from Kyle Field, I think they're going to get punched in the face. I really do. So
it is really something interesting. Like, how does LSU team refocus coming after a loss? Like, if they would have been A&M, how do they sustain the momentum of being good? Being on top. I think that's an interesting point that you're bringing up there.
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly having 2 weeks to stew over that, and Kelly's been really good, obviously, bouncing back in those situations. And I mean, Blake, we've mentioned how good he is at home too. So I think you couple all that together. Again, I know you and I will as well dive into the specific matchups of this game next week when we get closer to it. But a lot of it's going to come down to Garrett Nussmeier. I mentioned earlier this week, I felt like he's the pitcher that throws 100 miles an hour, that at times he just has no clue where it's going. Like he's got as high a ceiling as anybody, but man, he makes some throws that just make you scratch your head. I mean, we've seen it time and time again this year. It's just, if he could eliminate turnovers, easier said than done, but then again, not really. Just don't throw back across your body, across the middle of the field into coverage. I think as long as LSU doesn't turn it over, they're in good position. But I like what Blake Baker's doing with the defense, obviously. You look at what Marcel Reed did. I think LSU, it looked like they were caught off guard a little bit. They're not going to get caught off guard with Jalen Milroe. And even watching the Mizzou film, like Jalen Milroe, it's like he's still trying to play hero ball, throwing the ball down the field. I still don't think he's playing freely and loose. I'm like, that first half I watched in person against Georgia where he was read, go, and he was using his legs, and like he was playing like backyard football. Again, he reminded me of a Michael Vick. That just has been gone since. So I think Jalen Milroe, I think you write that off as he had one miracle half of football, and that's not really who he is, unfortunately, for Bama fans. So I think LSU will be much more prepared for the potential of him escaping the pocket in the quarterback run game.
Yeah, another thing too, both guys have had issues in reference to both have had difficult situations on third down. Like Milroe's had, I think, a lot of 3rd and 7s, a lot of 3rd and 8s, a lot of 3rd and 10s here. Mm-hmm. And so has Garrett. And to your point, I mean, like they've been in bad situations. I mean, look, a holding penalty killed them against Tennessee. Mm-hmm. Like, let's call it what it is. I mean, that last drive when Milroe threw the pick, I know they ultimately killed him. But the drive before that, when he dumped it off, I mean, it's 3rd and 23. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't really hate the play necessarily, right? Like, I mean, I don't really hate it. I mean, because you think that you can play a little field position and make a stop, worst thing, field goal. But I mean, Chris, neither one of them have some conducive issues. But to your point about Garrett, man, I mean, look, I'm glad somebody else said it besides me. I mean, like you're throwing the ball up to a 5'7" receiver in a jump ball situation, Chris. I mean, anybody that's played sports knows that who's going to win that battle. One guy's at a massive disadvantage. So yeah, man, I think it's very interesting there. Where do you see LSU going from here, though? Like when you look at the next 4 games, how do you see it playing out for them? Do you think they? I mean, you said that you don't think that Bama comes in here and is man enough to win, but how does that next 3 games go? At Florida, Vandy, and then Oklahoma. I mean, are they a playoff contending team?
I mean, I think they're still a playoff contending team for sure, Blake. On a side note, I just we just put the vlog together for the Nashville weekend, and I was reminded of
you texted me that, and I was in Ruffino and Joe show.
Yeah, it's publishing tonight, but I was reminded looking back at the footage how partying with the Pavias. I'm sure he's going to bring his entire family out there. They're going to fit in very well in Baton Rouge, just on a side note. Very, very well.
All the Pavias might not make it out of Baton Rouge.
No, I'm a little – I don't know who I'm more nervous for, the Pavias or the LSU folks around the Pavias, because somebody's probably taking one to the chin. I don't know who it's going to be. Anyways, though, no, I think LSU's obviously a playoff contender, Blake. I mean, that's why we're labeling this Alabama game as a playoff eliminator. I don't think either one of these sides is getting in with 3 losses, but I will say LSU does scare me from the standpoint of, this football team kind of feels like a reflection of their quarterback. And I think people need to realize, Blake, that, you can have these criticisms of Garrett Nussmeier and also say he's also a really good quarterback, but it just is who he is. Like the guy that throws 100 that can't throw strikes, he does still throw 100. So, it's not like we're totally disparaging the guy and ripping him to shreds, but this football team kind of echoes or kind of reflects him. And I think some of his play is probably the reason for the up and down nature. And so, like, I look at LSU, I feel really confident in the game against Alabama coming up here in a week and a half or so. But I also look at a game like Florida. Like I picked that as a loss before the season and an upset. Where is Billy Napier in Florida at that point? We'll see. And by the way, on a side note, I think Billy's actually a little bit safer than people realize in regards to his job status and where they sit right now. Just talking to Florida guys today. But, I think that's a really tricky game.
Do you think he survives? Side note, do you think he survives?
If he gets to 6 wins, he's back, Blake. And they're probably going to beat Florida State. Florida State's a total dumpster fire, obviously.
So basically, they got to upset somebody in this.
They've got to upset one
Georgia, LSU.
Texas, LSU, and Ole Miss. So more than likely one of LSU and Ole Miss. I mean, maybe Texas could screw around. I mean, listen, I watched them at Vandy, and it's like,
where's that game at? Guys in the interns, can we find that? Where's that game at? Do you know?
The Florida-Texas game, I believe that's in Texas. That's in Texas. Because I was considering going to that one for Austin, but it's an 11 a.m. local time, which for Florida is probably the time you want to get them at home. So anyways, I look at LSU, man, there's some losable games left for sure outside of Bama. Yeah, I mean, Oklahoma should be a win. Vandy, even with Diego Pavia, should be a win. I mean, I could probably say the same about Florida, but I mean, in this year of our Lord 2024, Blake, I don't think anything's a guarantee. So, and again, just what if Garrett Nussmeier goes out there against Vanderbilt and inexplicably throws 3 picks and Diego Pavia has the game of his life again, and we're talking about a tie game with 5 minutes to go. I mean, I'm just saying it's possible. So, but I think LSU is right there. I think as long as if Garrett Nussmeier can just raise the floor, but we've been saying it all year. That's the problem, Blake. I've been saying it all year, and it's just like he's the Bayou Brett Favre. We've said this. He's the Bayou Brett Favre. But you made the great point to me, Blake, one time, I think maybe off the record, there's a reason Brett Favre only had 1 Super Bowl because he threw more picks than anybody.
Right.
So he was a legend. But he was a legend that threw more picks than anybody else in the history of the game. So,
think about that for a minute.
You live by the sword, die by the sword. And you just pray to God that, what are there, 4 games left for LSU? You got the bye, then 4. You just pray to God that Garrett Nussmeier can get hot and play some of his best football down the stretch. I mean, you're kind of in that baseball mode of, God, hopefully we can be playing our best at the most important time. So,
Chris,
and that starts with your quarterback.
The number one thing that an offensive player, or especially a quarterback, has got to do, I don't care that he doesn't have a run game. I don't care. And he's not getting hit a lot. So there's no.
And I don't think the run game, I think we can kind of just, again, that's who LSU is. I mean,
correct.
They could pop off like they did against Arkansas, but for the most part, I'm not going into any game thinking LSU is going to run for 200.
I said, dude, I literally came in here tonight because Alabama's 69th in run defense. By the way, fantastic number. Secondly,
nice.
Okay.
Nice.
All right,
Blake. On a side note, did you see? I know you saw that crazy Yankee fan last night that pried the ball.
Legend.
Do you know that apparently he was college buddies with Rob Gronkowski?
Oh man,
Gronk was on a podcast. He was like, "Dude, I went to college with that guy. He was on the hockey team. He was a maniac." And I was like, "For Gronkowski to call you a maniac?"
I mean, in all fairness, okay, the statement that he made, I think it's Bush League. Okay, let me just say this.
Dude, he's prying the glove open. That was so absurd. Hey, have you seen the meme? They caught you in 4K.
Yeah, I did see. But here's the thing. Here's the only thing. Here's why I excuse everything about that play. It's because the comment that he made was, if you come in my area, I'm playing good D. Okay?
Oh, my God. That here's the thing. Everybody else in the world says scumbag. If that's your team, you're like, that's the most legendary fan of all time.
Oh, dude, why wouldn't I?
He's laying his body on the line for his squad. Because you think if the sidelines weren't somehow in football on the side of the field and there was a 50-50 ball, you think Blake Ruffino wouldn't lean over the gate and try to swat the ball away? You wouldn't pull a Woody Hayes or who was it that tackled the guy on the sideline? Right? Remember, he's running down, he trips him or whatever, or tackles him.
Dude, yeah. Literally, okay, I'll never forget this at Southeastern, okay? A side referee slipped down, okay? So, and the X was running a go. We had an offensive lineman, we'll remain nameless, who tripped the wide receiver because obviously the side referee fell down. So, like, he's trying to get up and, like, fall, he's, like, trying to get up. This before instant replay is a big deal. Rams the wide receiver and falls down. That's where the quarterback's throwing it. So he falls down. Wide receiver falls down on the ground. Quarterback throws the ball, and everybody's like, "Whoa, throw the flag. No flag is thrown. Okay. And so, yeah, I mean, like that. And so I'm not going to confirm or deny what coach said this. We had a coach, our coordinator, come into a film study and say, listen, this is what you call attention to detail inside of a game. He saw the referee fall, and he knocks a wide receiver over. You got to have the attention to detail in the moment, Chris.
You've got to. Dude, we used to do stuff like that in baseball too, but on the field. There was a squeeze play where essentially it was a two-man umpire crew, you would suicide squeeze to third base. Third baseman comes in. That umpire's like looking over this way. So what you do is you round the bag short. You like run along the dirt. You don't even go to the bag. If you're coming from second, you just cut it off short, and they don't see it. They don't know. So, I mean, listen, Bush League's part of baseball, unfortunately, guys. Hate to tell you.
The Astros say hello. That's
exactly.
Would you rather that or what the Astros did? Anyway, back to the topic. You were talking about. So let me ask you this. Let me go back to the Bama game because you've been there. First off, how was your experience? We didn't get you back, unfortunately, but how was your experience in Death Valley? How'd you like it for your first real experience?
I mean, listen, Blake, I think at this point it's pretty well documented, and I got to say, I feel like I've been adopted as one of LSU's prodigal sons, or Baton Rouge's one of their own, even though don't throw stones, even though I did say something nice about A&M this week, which, by the way, Blake, I'll just say this. I get it. Because even when I said something nice about A&M, they were like, fuck you, don't be jumping on the I'm like, I can't even give you praise. Guy calling me crazy because I was like, I just thought it was fair to say Mike Elko in year one might only win 7 or 8 games. No, that was a bullshit take. I'm like, all right, you know what? To hell with it. Anyways, I get it. I get it.
So again,
I get it.
I made my comment about A&M last week, and people thought I was crazy. You see the comments. Like, I'm not crazy. That's how they feel about him. And, anyway,
I get it. I'm going to College Station in a few weeks. I'm going to be careful what I say beyond that, but I get it.
Little brother, man. Little brother syndrome.
What was it? Jacked up truck.
Overcompensating
for something.
Here's what's funny. You ready? The way that they're reacting to my comments from last week, okay? you're kind of making the point. You're kind of like driving home the point. Like, so you're quote tweeting me twice. Okay, I'm not going down that rabbit hole, but I'm just saying you're literally that. Thank you. You know, like, so anyway.
Yeah.
Back
as,
to the point.
as Woody once said, if the boot fits.
If the boot fits, that's it. I mean, mean, literal boot. This is the boot. But,
literal boot. No, but Death Valley, spiritual experience, man. I mean, it was the volume was 100 plus from start to finish. It was some of the best in-game presentation I've ever seen with the in-stadium traditions, the band, the chants, it felt like it was never quiet, even though I know it at times was. I mean, when the offense is on the field or breaks in the action, but it just felt like it was never quiet. Blake, I think I told you this and I've told others. LSU was the one place I've been, and it still stands as the one place I've been where I felt intimidated. Like there was an intimidation in the air. Like it was just a next level type of. And I mean, I've told people, Blake, and I mean this respectfully. I said I had a great time at LSU. I don't know if I'd want to go there as a visiting fan, like a true diehard visiting fan. Not for anything malicious or anything, but you need rhino skin if you're going to walk in there and think you're going to be acting a fool and whatever. So just mentally prepare yourself. But the LSU folks were great, man. They welcomed us with open arms, welcomed me with open arms. I mean, I mentioned this. I even got emotional in pregame watching everything. I was just so happy to be there. It had been a bucket list item for forever as a college football fan,
right.
College sports fan. And so to be watching it all unfold, the festivities, game gets underway. I mean, it just, again, man, I just told you, it needs to be put in its own category. I don't think it's fair to compare other stadiums to Death Valley. I just, at night, Death Valley at night, it is a spiritual experience, as I said before. It is just, it's hard to put into words, honestly.
And look, you thought Ole Miss was chaotic?
Bama will be next. But on that note, I told you I went with my sister and her husband, and the guy we went with, their friend who we stayed with in Baton Rouge, lived about 5 minutes from downtown. He's an LSU alum, LSU diehard. You'd have to remind me what LSU says on kickoffs. I forget. But anyway, or maybe I forget what chant it was, but at the end of the chant every time, Blake, he was adding to the end and fuck Bama every time.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, the hatred's real. It's next. He even mentioned, he's like, it's next level. I mean, we hate them. Truly hate them.
And here's the thing too: their playoff hopes are on the line. Year 3 under a coach. I mean, it's gonna.
Would LSU have it any other way though, Blake? I mean, what an opportunity. I mean, I know your playoff hopes are on the line too, but the little man is no longer on that opposing sideline.
Correct.
And I think we talked about this, Blake. I think it's big for LSU, kind of like how it was big for Tennessee. Like I went to that game, Tennessee-Bama. It was just so important because they've had this amount of success against you. For Tennessee, they dominated you. But you're essentially starting a new chapter in the rivalry where you can now say we're 1-0 against Kalen DeBoer's Alabama. And that's not the same as Nick Saban's Alabama. We're starting this is a new chapter to the rivalry. Really important, obviously, to get off to that 1-0 start against them.
Right. And I think so Chris, I called it this week. You're going to find out where your culture lies, who you are as a program. I mean, look, you got what you feel like. I say you, but meaning the fan base. You feel like you got embarrassed last week, so you're kind of tucking your tail in between your legs to a lot of extent, and they're like, all right, well, we got a chance to make it up. Basically, we got into a fight and we got beat up, and we had to walk into school on Monday. Right? Be like, yeah, okay. Well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get in a fight with a big dude, and I'm just going to kind of whop his ass in the nose and see what happens. Kind of like, I mean, I'm not saying I've ever done that, but I mean, I'm just saying. Don't hit me in my big ass Italian.
What do you say, Blake? Styles make fights.
Styles make fights. Always do. That's why, like this week. Look, I was going to do picks in a minute, but I want to get with you around the SEC too. Mm-hmm. Speaking of A&M.
This is the one you find out who A&M really is.
You're going to find out who they are.
Yeah, you're going to find out, have they shed all of that Jimbo stench off of them, or is it still lingering? And that was my big question for Elko coming in. It's like, I know you like him too. I like Elko as a coach. I mean, no matter how you feel about A&M, Mike Elko's a much better fit, just a much better football coach.
My bad. Here's how I would equate it. Dan Campbell was with the Saints for a long time. Okay. He's a coach of the Lions. He's an A&M guy. Okay. He's the Dan Campbell of the SEC. Tough, rough, F-U. That's who he is. And you're going to win with a dude like that. I'm sorry. When the culture's built like that and the coach demands that, you're going to win. So, Chris, I don't mean this in a wrong way. Our society, we can be built off of being pussies. Okay, but at the same time, when a dude like that, when a real alpha male walks off in there, you ain't getting beta bitches. You know, like you're getting dudes. And I think that's the mentality of what A&M is playing with. And listen, I'm going to be a little real with you. That front seven from South Carolina, I feel like has that same mentality. I think that this is a slug fest. But like if A&M goes in there and like stops that front seven and be like, oh shit, oh God, you know.
Well, I think that's why they got to go with Marcel Reed. Like, I mean, I think they got Connor Wegman doesn't have a chance against those edges from South Carolina against that front seven. So they've got to use Marcel Reed to try to negate that. Although, I mean, again, Kyle Kennard, Dylan Stewart, it's one of the best duos in the country. And those guys have allowed some other dudes, Blake, that I think were just okay in years past to elevate their game to the next level. You mentioned to me off the air, Tonka Hemingway, how good he's been. But, like, that's why it's so important to stack depth and get quality pieces around you because it allows guys, I think, to really come into their own. Also, too, if you follow college football really, really closely, I wouldn't expect LSU fans to really know this, but anybody out there shouldn't be surprised by what we're seeing with South Carolina's defensive front because their defensive line coach is a guy named Travian Robertson. And Travian Robertson played at South Carolina, was an All-American, all-everything. His mentor and his D-line coach at South Carolina was a friend of mine, the late, great Brad Lawing. That was the defensive line coach that coached Jadeveon Clowney, that coached Travian Robertson. And this was a dude, I got to talk to him, Blake, one time about the art of the pass rush. Folks, if you think it's just pin your ears back and go to the quarterback, I learned about pain points. I learned about if you knew which way the center was going, how he could manipulate. I mean, dude, it was football porn listening to him talk about it. Like, it was, you don't realize, he's like, we'd watch film study 6, 7, 8 hours just watching the offensive line and watching the center and just watching his cues. It was, you would love it. It was awesome. Unfortunately, again, he passed away about a year and a half ago, but it was
D-line coaches know just as much about offensive line play than anybody, and O-line coaches just know just as much about D-line play. You can't not know, right? Because you watch so much. But you're right. And look, I think the safety play for South Carolina, Kilgore.
Yeah, him and Warrior and Kilgore, that's a hell of a duo, man.
Hell of a duo. And I'm going to tell you, man, too, how Kilgore. That sounds like what was the guy of Black Panther, the Killmonger? Okay, yeah. Like that kind of. All right, he's gonna kills in the name. You know what I mean? So, anyway.
I just look at this game though, Blake. It's going to be a raucous environment. I mean, I was in that building 2 years ago when South Carolina scored their only win over A&M in program history. It was a night game. You open that game up with a kickoff return for a touchdown. You had a couple turnovers. Or that was a bad A&M team. They went 5-7 that year, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But. You know, this is a game, Blake, where it's like nothing would shock you. You know, if I pick one side or you pick one side and you're wrong, you'll be like, I should have seen the other thing coming just because it makes so much sense. But you have this team in South Carolina that's been so inconsistent, hot and cold, up and down. The defense has been consistent, but offensively been so inconsistent. I think A&M's been a little bit more consistent. And I think from a personnel standpoint, they are better top to bottom than South Carolina.
Yes.
I think personnel is going to beat out a loud crowd. But I'm not going to be surprised if the Gamecocks are able to spark a few turnovers. Again, that defensive front, if they do make a big play in special teams. And the thing that also worries me too, Blake, we saw South Carolina come out of a bye week against Ole Miss with one of the most horrific game plans you have ever seen. I mean, who can forget the fake punt on the first drive? So, like, how am I supposed to trust that this coaching staff, this offensive staff, is going to have a plan in place to go up against that front seven from A&M with the Shamars and Scorton and York? And good luck. I mean, good luck. So, pair of young quarterbacks. I won't be surprised if both sides turn it over, lower scoring game. But I'm taking A&M in that ballgame just to find a way.
I'm with you there. Any other team in their game in the SEC that you're really intrigued by this week?
How about Woo Pig Suey? I got Arkansas straight up beating Ole Miss.
Okay, let's
I've
go
been
there.
so underwhelmed by Ole Miss, man. I even watching them like last weekend against Oklahoma, they're down at half. Like, I mean, I think you've talked about it. I've talked about it with others. The offensive line has been so disappointing for them. It has just been so disappointing, which has led to the offense being super underwhelming. I mean, I like them defensively. You know, it's a risky pick, but it's only a 7-point spread. It's a risky pick. I'm essentially banking on, though, that Arkansas can build off a big performance. I feel like they've been so, like, they're really good, then they're really bad. Then they're really good, then they're really bad. You mentioned it, too, man. If Talon Green continues to build confidence, and they've got maybe the most underrated wide receiver room in the league. They've got a guy in Jaquindon Jackson that you do not want to meet him in the hole. Pause. I mean, I had to steal one from you there, Blake. No, so I'm taking Arkansas.
How was I not ready for that? I wasn't even ready, and you hit me with it. Good catch. See, you're learning. You're learning Louisiana culture. Welcome.
Blake, do you know that I've started to on our previews? You're probably going to notice it. I've started on our previews, pull out the however.
Oh, yeah.
I'm starting to pick up on it. I'm like, I'm stealing, I'm swagger jacking from Blake.
Dude, I love a good however.
Blake, there's nothing you love more than a good however.
Oh, man, I love it because everybody
says. If your audience doesn't know yet, when Blake starts to make a point, just hang in there because a however's coming and you're going to get the other perspective in a few moments.
Oh, the other shoe's going to drop. Here's the thing, dude. When I'm making these notes for this show, okay, look at this.
I imagine there's two sides.
Oh, there's two sides. Look. Okay. I write down every single thought that I have because I play good versus evil. I play.
See, but that's why I like listening to your stuff, Blake, not to stroke your ego any more than blow the head up any more than it needs to be. But that's why I like watching your stuff because you get both sides and both perspectives. You lay out the path to victory for both sides, and then you say what you think is going to happen. I think that's fair. I like that. I think that's a good way to go about it. So love a good however.
Actually, can I tell you what happened? So I had a professor at Southeastern. He was a history professor. Loved him. Aces. I've never loved another teacher, professor, teacher, whatever. Okay. Aces. Only one that like class I was actually like really wanting to go to. It's why I was so good in history. It's because like he just taught well, man. I wanted to be there. He always kept my attention, Anyway, he would always hit us with this long lecture, okay, about how, when we got to Louisiana history and about the Louisiana Purchase and the Mississippi River and how all that was going down. And at the end of every, lecture, he would go, however, what is about to come next will change the course of history. And so we would be at a local bar called Brady's, and we all take his class. Dude, like everybody's got to take his class as a freshman. And then when you do history, you got him in other classes too. He would have like 1,000 students in one class. Okay. And I'm like, I'd be at the bar like, however. Okay. And like that was the thing.
And
like,
it just stuck.
Do the doc. However. And so now I do it because I mocked him so damn much. I love him even more now. He was teaching me how to be a man, Chris. I'm sorry.
I respect it. Again, who doesn't love a good however? By the way, I wanted to point out something JTL says in the comments about the trap game for A&M.
Is this it right here?
That's it right there. Yeah. He just looks like a trap game. You're not wrong, but I kind of feel like, Blake, this game has been circled as a trap game for A&M for so long that at some point, Blake, if you keep calling it a trap game, it's no longer a trap game. Like,
right.
It's fully well got their attention, or it should. I mean, it should. And I see Elko as a no-nonsense, like, I haven't drank the A&M Kool-Aid all year long. I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt. Listen, if they go lay an egg, I might have to go back to my post that everybody was giving me hell on and be like, well, I shouldn't have drank the Kool-Aid. So Y'all
well,
are welcome.
the only thing with them is, man, if they get past this one,
you feel pretty good. I mean, they got New Mexico, Auburn, and then Texas. So,
well, at minimum, you're probably. But see, here's the thing, Chris. They would have to. Let's say they beat South Carolina. They would then have to turn around and lose to Auburn and lose to Texas to potentially not be in Atlanta. Like that's where they are. So let's just say that they do beat South Carolina, or they do lose, okay, or they do win. Chris, they got to lose a whole nother one. So I mean, like, look, man, I know that everybody is like, hey, man, you're drinking the Kool-Aid. Well, the Kool-Aid is there's a strong likelihood that they're playing in the SEC championship game.
I mean, listen, Blake. Listen, Blake. Give them credit. That was a tough game against LSU, but it was at home at night. They've capitalized on a soft schedule. I mean, give them credit. Give them credit. They have. They've capitalized on a soft schedule. That schedule was soft. I mean, it was a reason why after the Mizzou game, it's like this is kind of all we have to go off of. They beat on a Mizzou team that's super overrated. And it's like, well, who else they played? Like, really nobody. I mean,
right.
That's why, finally LSU, I was like, okay, this to me shows more because I was and still am a really big believer in LSU. So I'll tip my cap and give you your props. I wasn't even ready to give props after the Missouri win, which is why I picked LSU in that football game, and I felt really smart for about 30 minutes. So, I mean, you got to give credit where credit's due. Yeah, you got to give credit where credit's due and tip the cap to them. But intriguing games again, Blake. I like Arkansas over Ole Miss. I've been super underwhelmed by them, and I'm a believer in Bobby Petrino and that offense continuing to roll even against a really, really good defense. Apparently, Walter Nolan might be out.
Yes,
this weekend.
That's correct.
That's significant. Also, of course, Blake, the game I'm going to this weekend, Georgia, Florida, just let me be intrigued by it. I know what you're going to say. I know what you're going to say. But at least early on, Blake, I'm so excited to see the emotions in that game, the Trevor Etienne factor. I just imagine Brandon Spikes on top of Noshawn Moreno just jawing him relentlessly. That's what Florida guys are going to want to do. I don't think they have a Brandon Spikes, but that's what they're going to probably be envisioning they want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Can Georgia play a clean football game? That's if they're mucking it up and turning the football over again. I mean,
anything can happen.
You mentioned this. You mentioned this when Arkansas played Tennessee. Empty the clip. That was like if Florida's not emptying the clip the rest of the way out, I don't know what we're doing because there is a path for Billy to be back. But hey, you want to lock it in? Go beat Georgia. Go beat Texas. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so
I don't think Florida is as bad of a team.
They've silently been getting better. They have. They've quietly been getting better.
Well, I mean, who have they lost to? Blake, they lost to Tennessee in overtime. Okay,
the Tennessee loss was a damning loss, though. I know
it was a damning loss.
They should have won that game. Billy Napier blew that game for them.
Completely blew it. But in the same sense, I'm like, okay, so a top 10 team won, right?
They lost to A&M.
They lost to A&M, who might be the SEC front runner, or is the SEC front runner right now.
They lost to Miami.
They have the best offense in college football.
The thing with the Miami game, again, I was there in person. It was the way it happened. I don't care how good Miami is. I mean, they just you can't get run out of your own stadium, dude. In the swamp, in the season opener. You can't get – and then you can't have Miami guys chirping your recruiting section after don't go here. Come to Miami. Bro, if somebody did that at LSU, I think the Bayou would have there'd be a revolt.
You've seen people throw beer on the field in the SEC. You've seen people throw mustard. Okay, at a stadium, golf balls.
Yeah,
y'all ain't ready for crawfish and boudin and cold couscous to be thrown down on the field. I'm just going to tell you that right now.
That sounds like a delicious evening, Blake.
I know. I don't know whether to be mad or
I still miss the food. I really do. I still miss the food. I told people since I left, it's the best food you've ever eaten. It's the best food you've ever eaten.
You texted me on the Sunday. I was like, how you feeling? Like, and you're like, well, I gained 6 pounds.
I did, for real. I literally came home from the LSU trip. I have a scale in my bathroom. I was up 6 pounds from that weekend.
What did I tell you when we went out to eat? Look, listen. I in any other normal state, I'm a healthy 230. Okay, I just can't get away from it here, man.
The thing is, though, when you're in Baton Rouge, it's like the food is so good Like if I went and ate McDonald's, I'd feel like a disgusting human. No offense to anybody that eat McDonald's, but I just feel like my body. But the food's so good, it's like you don't realize it while you're indulging in it how bad it is for you. You know, like it's kind of like it's like drinking apple pie moonshine. You don't realize what it's doing to you till you're about 5 in, and you can't stand up. So, that's how the food is. It's like you don't realize what it's doing to you until after a couple of weeks, and you're like, these pants don't fit anymore.
Oh, well, first off, you know what's funny is because, dude, to my credit, I've drinking 3 glasses of wine this entire football season, and most of them have come off of a celebration. Like my daughter, we had a glass of wine. We went to eat, just the family for my daughter's birthday. Glass of wine. I got to take the edge off. Okay, I mean whatever. But I got to admit, when your boy would go on a Saturday after LSU would lose, and I'm like, "Where's the Daniels? Where?" I'm
about to say this is coming from a guy that we literally sit in the baseball stadium, and it's like, yeah, I smell bourbon.
Oh, could you not smell it though?
Yeah, I could.
I mean, and so there's no like, dude. So just for everybody to understand this, so I meet Chris at the box. Okay, we're gonna go watch a little baseball. We sit down, and the whole place smelled like bourbon.
And I was like, at a
scrimmage, and I'm like, at a baseball scrimmage. Okay, in fucking October. Okay, and I'm like, Chris, do you smell that? And he's like, of course, yeah. I mean, I was like, dude, and that's the point. That's the culture that you're getting. And to wrap this all up in a bow, I feel like that my barometer of this place from what the fan base feels is 99.9% on point. Okay, with the emotion. I mean, you're not going to out-emotion me from an LSU point. If you want an emotional take, trust me, I read and interact with more comments than any content person on this beat. I promise you, okay? It's going to be serious in come 2 weeks. I feel
Blake,
it.
Do you equate it to when you said that the Ole Miss game was program defining? Is this a similar vibe? I mean, is it?
Similar vibe, yeah.
Yeah, because to your point, you made a great point. It's we all know what they're going to be saying about Brian Kelly if they lose.
Correct.
It just right, wrong, or indifferent. You can print the headline before the game even starts. I'm
going to read you the headline. You ready? Nick Saban in year 3. Les Miles in year 3. Ed Orgeron in year 3. Brian Kelly. It's what's going to hit the Times-Picayune or whatever the newspaper. I'm telling you, it's what's going to hit it. Chris, I have been through more coaching searches, okay, which I love coaching searches.
Great for content.
Not only great for content, what people don't understand, brother, the views are insane. I mean, who's going to be the next head coach? So anyway, I should come out here every night saying, fire Brian Kelly. If I want to make money, fire Brian Kelly, right? Like that's what I should be doing. However, there's a good however. However, I know, I'm telling you, actually, I'm not even going to do it. If you're in the chat and agree, give me a thumbs up or thumbs down. The things are going to be, it's going to be that way. Couldn't win it. We're in 9-3 purgatory. And Chris, there is no more pissed off LSU fan than being in 9-3 purgatory. They'll call him less. Okay, you're good enough. You're good enough to be there. I mean, you do this 25 times a month. You feel like you know how this place is going to react. All right, I've kept you way too long, but thank you, Chris Phillips.
It's always a pleasure, man.
Unfiltered. I love y'all's content, man. You know I told you this. I love what y'all are doing. You going to the games. It is awesome stuff. I mean,
and I want to apologize to all the great folks in Baton Rouge because as much as I would love to be back in a week and a half, there are the places, Blake, we haven't been that we got to show love. So I'll play spoiler here on the show. We'll obviously announce it after this weekend concludes, but that weekend we'll actually be in Oxford for the Ole Miss Georgia game. So, I mean, it's not going to be it's not going to be LSU.
Oh, no, it's not.
Not even remotely close. I'm actually going probably to the polar opposite, Blake, from hanging on the bayou, eating jambalaya at the tailgate, smelling the bourbon, going to the night game, the rowdiness, the craziness, to the prim and proper on the Grove. You know, like
that's exactly what you're doing. That's exactly
I'm going back to prep school, like, you know, straight up. So all love to the Ole Miss folks, but that I've been told like little bit snooty. So
listen,
people go like, you're wearing a t-shirt to the tailgate? Sure, you sure?
I know for a 100% fact you're going to hear this. Becky, can you get my Birkenstocks? I feel like Ole Miss is the Birkenstock of the SEC.
I have heard though, Blake, Ole Miss is where they redshirt Miss Americas. So I'm intrigued by the trip. I'm going to leave it at that. So,
well, they do. I cannot deny that. I cannot deny it. All right, Chris Phillips, that's some filter. Thank you so much, buddy. Thank you for joining me.
Blake, you're the man. I appreciate it anytime, man.